No worries.
So that way I can type this up at my own speed rather than, because I've had to do court transcriptions before, and those are generally awful, especially when you're doing questioning of someone. But this is far,
Yeah.
I mean, but that's deposition, like far more formal discussions than what we're doing. So anyway, I'm still blown away that you agreed to do this. So, and it's been fun researching you and looking you up, and I've been looking forward to this pretty much for the last couple weeks. So,
All right. Well, I hope you did your homework.
well, yeah. So let's get started. First, fair disclosure, I am a Board and Blue Dodgers fan, and up until I saw a YouTube video about you, I didn't know who you were. And then, but what I did, but once I did see it, it was a YouTube video by Sports Storm. It's about maybe a 13-minute profile of you. It blew me away. Just to forecast your story. It was excellently produced and documented. I
was going to say, yeah, I think they did a really good job on that. I stumbled upon it from a friend, and I was like, oh wow, they actually did pretty good on this, like the whole story of everything. So
yeah, leading into my first question was like, I guess you answered it. I mean, did you know of this video? And I mean, so clearly you were. Were you involved in its production in any way?
No, I never met the guy or don't know who it is. And like I said, I'm not sure if a friend sent it to me or if I just stumbled upon it somehow on like Twitter or social media. And I was just like, oh, what's this video? And like clicked on it and I watched it. And I did a pretty good job researching everything and getting a good background of the knuckleball and just a little bit about everything. So pretty well done.
Okay, very cool. So what are you up to these days with the lockout going on?
Well, I'm a free agent, so I'm still, looking for a job, and then just staying in shape, training, working, picking up odd jobs here and there, and just staying in shape as best I can and staying ready.
Okay. Well, have you gotten any feelers to being invited somewhere, even on on a minor league basis for spring training?
Yeah. No like invites or anything, just like, we know who you are, we'll keep tabs on you. Team doesn't know what they're doing yet, that type of stuff. I put some feelers out there with some old coaches or scouts that I've met through the years, and just let them know I'm a free agent and looking for a job for next year, and basically just looking for an opportunity to get out to spring training and you know just throw a knuckleball. Just be different than everybody they got in their system, pretty much. So
Okay. Ideally, if you could, pick your landing spot for this coming year, where would you want to go?
I don't know if I really have one. I mean, obviously, I live in Arizona, so the Diamondbacks would be a good spot. Their AAA team is in Reno, which is where I grew up. So just that would be good. I love the Orioles organization from last year. Last couple of years dealing with them and them giving me my opportunity last year, so I wouldn't hesitate to go back with them. But I mean, to be honest, it's it's really just any organization that believes in what I can do and the knuckleball. And again, the knuckleball is so different. Not every organization is going to believe in the knuckleball, so it's just trying to find the right spot. And last year was with the Orioles. It would be great if it was the Orioles again. But if it's somebody else, that's all. Just looking for an opportunity to get out there and pitch again.
Okay. You mentioned Reno. I was curious about something. Admittedly, I mean, I also grew up in the Central Valley, so I knew that, when I saw the video and saw like, oh yeah, the CSU Bakersfield, I instantly knew where that was. So I'm curious, like, because you were born in Nevada, how'd you end up in Bakersfield?
Yeah, so that's just a whole lot of moving around. So I went to 5 different schools in 5 years, starting my junior year of high school. And then, so my freshman through junior year of high school, I went to high school in Reno, Nevada. And then I didn't really like the coach and the opportunity that I was like getting there. So I decided to move in with my grandpa my senior year in Arroyo Grande High School in California, like Central Coast. So I moved in with him. spent my senior year at Arroyo Grande High School. Got noticed by a couple junior colleges, and out of high school, I kind of felt like junior college was going to be my route, as opposed to like D2, D1, 4-year school. So I was just kind of leaning that way out of high school. So I ended up going to a junior college in Sacramento, Cosumnes River, and pitched a little bit there, but I really wanted to be a two-way guy. And when I first got recruited by them, I was recruited to be a two-way guy because I played a little bit of short and third in high school. And so I went there my freshman year. I ended up being a pitcher only. So I transferred to Allen Hancock Junior College in Santa Maria, California. Lived back with my grandpa in Rio Grande and went there and started the spring as a two-way guy. And then as the season went on, I became too valuable as a pitcher. So I was their closer for the team. And so I became a pitcher only there again. But realistically, I knew like pitching was going to be where I was going to succeed. So, but I was a two-way player at heart, so it was hard to give it up. But I kind of knew like going forward that was going to be where what was best for me. And then out of Allen Hancock, I was recruited by Fresno State and Cal State Bakersfield. So Fresno State was they actually ended up winning the College World Series that year in 2008. So I would have been a junior in 2009 going there. But Cal State Bakersfield recruited me too. And I felt like I've always told people this is go where you're loved, not where you're liked. And when I got recruited by Fresno State, they were like, well, we like you. You'll be in our bullpen. You know, you'll get opportunities to pitch, this and that. I was like, okay, you know, be a good spot, good program. But then Bakersfield called and went on a recruiting trip there, and they started a D1 program. We literally built the field from the ground up. We were laying the turf, you know, in the spring. But when I was recruited there, you know, I go to the school and our coach just showed us a field of weeds and dirt. And they're like, this is where the baseball field's going to be. And we want you to be our guy. You're going to be one of our starting pitchers. But we love you. We want you to be at Bakersfield. We want you to start this program here. We want you to be one of our guys. And I was sold on that. And one of the other things that sold me was, especially in today's game, was their coach was kind of old school and he let pitchers call their own pitches. So pitcher and catcher got to call their own game. And not that Fresno State wouldn't, but the coaches called the pitches and then like you got to shake off if you wanted to. But to me, just like being able to call your own game was such a huge part of learning the game and learning yourself and working with the catchers. And so I thought that was a huge thing for me to go to that school too. And again, like today's game, you don't even see that. You see all these kids with wristbands and watches now when they're trying to pitch. And it's kind of ridiculous to me, but you know, it's just the way, like I understand it, but you know, again, to me, that was one of the things that led me to my college. So,
well, that's awesome, man. And I remember that 2008 Fresno State team. Everyone, you know, everyone was comparing it to a 16 winning March Madness, and I was at college at the time, so I was just like, oh, okay. It was in the background, but it didn't compute they were actually going to win the title until they actually did, and it was just like, oh, this happened. Because it's Fresno, who you expect stuff happening there in Fresno. What was your repertoire back then?
I was a sinker slider, mostly, and then my senior year I really developed a cutter and a changeup, and then I always had my knuckleball in my back pocket. So never threw it in college, but messed around with it on the side and things like that. But sinker, slider, cutter, changeup. The cutter and changeup my senior year really developed, and that really put me on the map as a good enough pro prospect, I think. So I was a sinker slider guy as a closer in junior college, and I had a really good year, and I thought there was a chance that I would get drafted. But I was like, you know, I'm 5'9", I'm right-handed pitcher and 88, 92. I think I topped out at 93. You know, I had a really good slider though. So I thought there was a chance. Obviously, it didn't happen. Then went to be a starting pitcher, Bakersfield, and to get through a lineup 2 or 3 times, I needed a little more than just a sinker and a slider. So really took it upon myself and developed a changeup and a cutter going into my senior year. And my changeup was actually like it was a circle change, but I was actually playing catch with my dad in front of our house in Reno, and kind of messing around. I was like, I got an okay changeup, but it's not good enough. And I knew I threw a really good knuckleball. So you know how guys throw like a spiked curveball. I ended up spiking my changeup. So I moved my middle finger up on a circle change, and I just threw it to my dad, and it dropped like 2 feet,
Wow.
and I was just like right away, it had a good feel coming out of my hand. I was like, oh, this might be a good pitch. And it turned out to be a good pitch because I was able to neutralize left-handed hitters a little bit more than just throwing a sinker and a slider. You know, I had sinker, cutter going that way, and then a slider and a changeup. So I was really just able to like tunnel my pitches a little bit more and added a couple more for them to worry about.
Okay, very cool. Before moving on to moving on progressively in your career, the video with Sports Storm had a picture of you in a mullet, and I was wondering, A, confirming, was that really a mullet, and B, was that an intentional choice?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really like a mullet because I didn't shave the sides. Um, it was just I grew out my hair. I think it was my second year of indie ball. Um, just the last 3 months of the season, I decided to. I don't even know what year the picture was that you're talking about, but I grew out my hair my senior year of college, so I had like long, like curly, wavy hair down to my
Okay.
shoulders, but it would always like bunch up. And then my second year of indie ball, I grew out my beard, so my beard was like super long, like
Okay.
3 or 4 months long, and then I grew out my hair too. So I was just a whole mess of an indie ball pitcher.
Gotcha. I'm sorry. Just the look of it just screamed Bakersfield. So I was just like, okay, I got it. Not necessarily jabbing you for it, but I was just like, okay, Central Valley guy, I got to comment on it.
Yeah,
We
it was a lot of it was like a coincidence with things. Just like I was just like my senior year growing out my hair, and then I happened to be number 55. And I don't know if you're familiar with the show Eastbound and Down with Kenny Powers,
somewhat, yeah.
but yeah, so everybody would call me Kenny Powers, and I didn't even know what the show was at the time. But it's really funny because we have like me and the person in the show have completely opposite personalities. So people are calling me that, and I'm like, what are they talking about? And then I saw the show, and I was like, he's number 55. He grows his long, wavy hair out, and watching him, I'm like, that's not me at all. But it was just like a coincidence with all that. But yeah, it's a little mullet that I had in my senior year.
Oh, okay. Just to share, so yes, I had something similar like that happen with me, but people were comparing me to Ron Swanson, and I'd never seen Parks and Rec, so I was just confused for initially quite a bit until I did see it. And I was like, okay, there are quite a few differences, but I was like, oh my God, just in certain mannerisms, just like, oh, please and thank you. And just sort of like, oh, okay. Or in just the type of whiskey I liked. I was like, oh my God, we both like Lagavulin. Okay, that's weird. I need to meet Nick Offerman now. This is just
Yeah.
bizarre, but so as I understand it, you were drafted in the 44th round of the 2010 draft. How are you notified?
Um, by my computer on the internet. No, I was watching the live draft tracker back then, and me and my roommate, and just kind of like 44th round, like there's 50 rounds back then, like just kind of zoned out for a minute, just like, am I ever going to get drafted? And just kind of zoned out, and then like kind of in the back of my mind, like it just kind of like heard like Mickey Jannis right in the pitcher Cal State Bakersfield. I'm like, just sitting there, and I was like, wait a second, I think it just heard my name. And then I like run over to my computer, like check it. And sure enough, I did. And then my phone rang with like a text message from the scout from the Rays that drafted me. And then my phone started blowing up from people that I knew. But just a text that I remember saying, "Congratulations on getting drafted. I'll call you after the draft is over." So then just waited the next 5 rounds, and I also heard my roommate scream in the other room too because he was watching his computer at the same time. Um, so then he came out and he like gave me a big hug, congratulations, and then all that. So it was pretty crazy moment, and just to realize that I'd get the opportunity to play professionally.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I guess the only follow-up question I have as to that is like, did you have any expectation that you were going to get, or like what round you were going to get picked, or?
Nope, I really had no idea if I was going to get drafted at all. And I remember talking throughout the year a little bit, talking to that Rays scout a few times, like just getting random texts like, "Hey, good game, keep it up." And another guy I was in contact with was with the Blue Jays, who used to be one of my teammates. He was a scout for the Blue Jays. So just kind of talking to him. And like before the draft, he was like, "Hey, if you didn't get drafted, would you want to play indie ball?" And I told him yes, like I still want to play and things like that. So it was just kind of like keeping in touch with little things here and there. And um, but yeah, I really had no idea whether I'd get drafted or not. And turned out I did and got the opportunity. And it was actually Andrew Friedman was the GM or president for the Rays when I was drafted. So
Right.
moving on to the Dodgers now, but yeah, he was the one who officially drafted me, I guess.
Do you remember any other teams looking at you back then that you were aware of?
Not as much as like those two. Those are the two that stick out. I might have had like a scout from like a team, like, "Here, fill out this draft information, like name, bio, that type of stuff." But nothing like, no like phone calls or like talking after games or that type of thing. But like those were the two where like exchange a couple text messages, saw him at a game, like, "Hey, Mickey, how's it going?" Well, talking like that. But yeah, those are the two. I think I remember signing one for the Reds, like just a form, but that was pretty much it.
Gotcha. So before we move on to your minor league career, I was curious, like say we're talking around this time or even earlier, were there any particular players or a team that you were a fan of growing up or in that
I
phase?
mean, I was a diehard Yankee fan growing up. So it's kind of funny getting drafted by the Rays. Everybody's like, "Oh, you can't root for the Yankees anymore." I'm like, I don't really care. I'm getting paid by the Rays, so I think I can change real fast. But you know, so I was a huge fan of them, and then like my family grew up in Los Angeles, so the Dodgers were like would be a cool organization, and then like the Giants, like Bay Area. I grew up in Reno, so a lot of Giants fans out there, and going to a lot of those games growing up. The A's, those kind of the local teams, and then. But I think the big one would have been like the Dodgers, just because my grandpa's still alive and he's been a diehard Dodger fan since like Vince Scully started. So it's
Oh wow.
he's always like followed them, and so I think that would kind of like be the other organization or team that would be like really cool to play for, and to be able to hand my grandpa like a Dodger hat, like a real Dodger hat, and be like, "Hey, I actually signed with the Dodgers," something like that would be like cool. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's professional baseball, and like who's ever going to
Right.
sign your checks, honestly.
Oh,
So
no, I hear you. I mean, it makes sense, but it's always interesting, especially when players come up and they're like, "Oh yeah, I was a fan of so and so or this team or that team," and they're like, "Dude, I
yeah,
just want to get paid. I want to do it. I
yeah,
want to actually practice my trade." I'm like, I hear you.
yeah,
I think,
yeah,
like,
yeah. Now at this point, yeah, after 13 years, it's just like, I'll take whoever. And
yeah,
just like my first time being a free agent, I was just like, I have no idea who's gonna come calling, if anybody. And sure enough, the Diamondbacks called one day, and then the Orioles called the next day with a better offer. And it's like, so
yeah,
that's just how it goes. So, you know, um, I mean, my dad named me after Mickey Mantle growing up, so I was just like follow the Yankees my whole life with him, and but my mom was more of a Dodger fan, and so it's just, but like I said, it's just root for teams growing up, but then root more for players when you get into the business, I think.
Totally. You actually beat me to another question. I mean, most people aren't named Mickey, so I was curious, like, okay, if that was happening, and you just answered, you were named after Mickey Mantle.
Yeah, yeah. My when my mom was pregnant with me, my dad mentioned the name Mickey, after Mickey Mantle, and she was like, "No, no way, no way." And then when I was born, she like held me and was like, "He looks like a Mickey," and my dad was like, "All right, sounds good." you know, so I was like, so that was how I got my name. But yeah,
I want to talk about some independent ball for a little bit. I know you had two different stints in the independent league. I'm someone who only knows of independent leaguers through the exploits of someone like Rich Hill. What can you share about those experiences that the average fan does not know but should know?
it's legit baseball. I mean, it's guys who have played in the major leagues, the guys who have played at the upper levels of the minor leagues. Guys who have been around a long time. Um, like it's just as good as minor league baseball. It just might be guys who didn't get an opportunity. It might have been hurt early in their career, trying to hold on a little bit longer. But I mean, you'll get even baseball players who come to indie ball and they're like, indie ball, tear right through this, and I'll be right back in the affiliated baseball in no time. And then they show up and they get dominated, and they're next thing you know, they're out of the game, going like, wait, I thought I was playing independent ball. Like I was supposed to just dominate this. And they don't realize like these guys, even if they haven't played affiliated ball before, like they're still legit guys. I mean, baseball is a weird, different sport like that where I mean you can get a lower level team beating a better team, any day of the week. Nobody ever goes undefeated in baseball. So it's just um it's legit baseball. So if you haven't followed it or don't know anything about it, like they're good baseball games and good baseball players that who will still never get another opportunity to play affiliated ball or play in the major leagues. So it's entertaining to watch, and sometimes they put on better shows than minor league teams or you know so, and it's another way for fans to interact a little bit more with players and things like that, just because they're more open to that. And you don't really have a number one overall prospect going like, okay, well, I don't really care about the fans or something like that. Where like if you're an indie ball, like you kind of interact with the fans a little bit more. It's a little sometimes it can be a little bit more fun just because it's really all about winning. So you just go out there and you just play. And if you can't get it done, they're gonna move on from you real fast. There's no like, well, we'll give them 3 years to develop. It's like, no, you're gonna help me win right now, or you're gonna move on. So, there's a little bit more turnover sometimes with independent ball, but I mean the baseball is legit, and there's some really good players playing independent ball.
Okay. As of right now, where was your favorite place to pitch in independent ball? Did you have a favorite spot?
The Long Island Ducks, that was a lot of fun playing for them. Um, they had a really good atmosphere. Everybody was into the games, almost sold out all the time. Um, but yeah, I mean, I really loved playing there. Um, that would probably be my number one spot.
What's your best duck story from being a Long Island Duck?
Best story. Um, no, Lou Ford was um, pretty fun to watch play, and that's again where you get like Lou Ford. He was a borderline Gold Glover. He might have won a Gold Glove in the major leagues. And you're looking at him like, oh, Lou Ford. I think he might have been 40 years old when he was playing with me, and you're like, why is this guy still playing? And you watch him go out there every day, and he's hitting 340, 350. He's you know hitting balls off the wall. He's crashing into fences, diving all over the place. You're like, wow, like this guy is just going after it still. And he's like 40 years old in independent ball. And you're like, why is he even doing it? And then you realize like 2 years before, a couple years before, maybe he got signed out of independent ball from the Long Island Ducks and boom, like called right up to the major leagues. I can't remember if he was called up by the Twins or the Orioles at the time, but it was just like boom, we moved right up into center field for major league team. So, and same thing for like Rich Hill. Like I think I got signed by the Mets, and 2 weeks later, the Ducks signed Rich Hill, and he made 2 starts, and then got signed by the Red Sox, I think. And then boom, he was in the major leagues, like dominated, and then boom, made a huge contract. Like those stories are just like pretty cool when you see those, how they can reinvent their careers, or catch on with an indie ball team, show somebody, and then they catch on and get called up back to the major leagues. So, but the Lou Ford playing with Lou Ford was pretty fun to watch him every day.
Okay, that's very cool. So around what time did you realize that you start like, look, the sinker slider, it's not getting me there. I need to switch over to the knuckleball.
Well, that was as soon as I got released by the Rays in 2011 off season. Pitched 2 years with the Rays, decent numbers, nothing spectacular, but basically just went out and got guys out, had good games, had a couple bad games, but good numbers, and got released and just said like, hey, we just don't have room for you. Okay. Um, so I just went like, again, back to point A, like average right-handed pitcher, 5'9", 88, 92, sinker slider. Like, really, what is that going to get me? How far is that going to get me? And then like R.A. Dickey started to pitch really well at the time, and I knew I had a good knuckleball, and I threw it really firm like he did. So I thought like, maybe this is my way to do something different and stick out from the crowd in independent ball. Um, so that was just kind of it. I just got released and was like, got to do something different.
Okay. I mean, clearly, I mean, it worked to the point where, so, I mean, independent ball, then you get picked up by the Mets. You're there you're there in their system for a couple of years. And you end up in the Orioles system, and you're in AAA Norfolk and last year, and you get the call to the show. So, I mean, granted, so can you share, I mean, you've talked about this before elsewhere, but can you elaborate, like, you've been working over more than 10 years for this moment. Can you share like what that was like, and just reaching, getting your shot?
Yeah, it was just I'll try and explain it. It's still so hard to put into words exactly, just feelings and everything that was going through your mind. I just remember getting a phone call from my manager, Gary Kendall, and just thinking to myself, like seeing his name pop up on my phone like one morning, and I'm like, all right, well, if it's usually something with the pitching rotation, the pitching coach usually texts or calls you, you know, if it's, I'm like, I'm not pitching bad, so I can't get released. I'm not getting sent down. I'm not getting released. Like this has to be the moment. Sure enough, answer the phone. And, hey, Mickey, I wish I could tell you this in person, but just wanted to let you know the Orioles are purchasing your contract, and you're heading up to Baltimore later today. I'm extremely excited for you, and this is a long time coming. Just remember, be yourself up there, power shag fly balls during batting practice. Do your thing, and best of luck to you. And it's like, I'll make this call quick because I know you got a lot of phone calls to make after this, but just congratulations. And this is just one of the best phone calls I've ever made to a player. So, as soon as he said that, heart starts racing. I'm going a million miles an hour. Like, what do I got to do to get to Baltimore? Call my wife, tell her what's going on. And as I was talking to my wife, I got a phone call from like the baseball operations guy for the Orioles talking about travel arrangements. So I had to hang up with her and then talk to the operations guy. And again, like on the phone and like just throwing everything in my suitcase and just like don't care about anything else. Just like get everything in there, getting on a plane in a couple hours. So I'm just in a hurry, and then start calling like my sister, my parents, friends. And my wife texts me, it's like, what's going on? I'm like, oh, I forgot to call her back just because I had already talked to her. So got distracted by the other phone call. Then I'm like doing all these other things. And my wife's like, what's going on? I'm like, oh, shoot. So I hang up with everybody, call her back, let her know travel plans and what's going on. So everybody's trying to figure out when to get there, and just when I get up there, I know it was a late report day, so had a little bit extra time before the game, but just tried to take it all in, and kind of slow the heart rate down a little bit, even though your heart's racing when you're when you're out there like playing catch and talking to people and players, trying to meet everyone and all that kind of stuff. So it's just like, just a surreal moment and just like I said, when I got out on the field, just tried to like take it all in, just being in the stadium and just try to, take advantage of the opportunity when I was there. So that was just kind of my whole thought process, and just biggest thing was just trying to take it all in and enjoy it while I was there, because you just don't know how long, I was going to be there for, or, what was going to happen. So.
Yeah, you've touched on this a little bit, but what do you most remember about your cup of coffee in the show?
I mean, the actual playing part, I mean, I remember a lot of it. The biggest moment I think was obviously watching the game, knowing the situation. I kind of had a feeling when the phone rang in the bullpen that it was going to be me. So, just like being ready to go, and then remember jogging in, and then getting on the mound, and then usually, I don't really hear anything when I'm like warming up or pitching or anything like that. So, just getting my warm ups in, just trying to like be under control, embrace the adrenaline and that type of thing. And then on the loudspeaker, I heard like making his major league debut, Mickey Jannis, over the loudspeaker. And I just like remember hearing that. So that was like the one thing that I remember hearing. And I'm just like, wow, like I'm actually out here now, take a step back and just like take a deep breath, like try to be under control and just, but then, obviously you still have a job to do. So you're trying to be like under control and like focus on the job to do. So I was able to do that for 2 innings and then got a little out of control. But yeah, it was just like I said, wouldn't trade it for anything.
Well, no, that's good. I mean, I went back, watched as much footage as I could watch of that game. I understand, I mean, you were out there to wear innings. There's no,
Yeah.
I mean, you're down 6-0 after
that's
4.
part of, yeah, and I mean that's part of the game. So it sucks to be that person sometimes, but other times, like maybe another day I might have gone 5 shutout innings or something like that. So it's part of the game.
Oh, exactly. I mean, it's just sort of like, here you go, Rook. Here's the short straw. But at the same time, it's like, hooray, you're finally there, and it's still,
Yeah.
And plus, you struck out Jordan Alvarez looking on a knuckleball. So that, I mean, as someone who has a complicated relationship with the Astros, for reasons that are pretty obvious if you talk to any Dodgers fan, I'm not gonna lie, that put a huge smile on my face watching, that your knuckler just sort of dart in there at 82 miles an hour, and it's like, oh, yep, there you go, sit down, go away, there you go. So I guess, I mean, admittedly, one of the reasons I did reach out to you is the knuckleball is my favorite pitch. It's just so, it's hard to describe because, you see these people, take your Dustin Mays or your, people or Bruce Dark Admirals who can throw triple digits with impunity. And then on the flip side, on the extreme flip side, you have someone who just gets up there and maybe it's going highway traffic, but it's not rotating. So, and when it's on, it makes people look like they're in Little League. And just being like, oh yeah, everyone's throwing, and especially in a game dominated by RPM and pitch movement, you have, I would argue anyway, that the knuckleball still is extremely viable because it's the great counter to everyone who's just been teeing up on fastball and pitch movement, and then especially once they started enforcing the ban on foreign substances on balls. I'm not gonna lie, I chuckled immensely when you were checked for foreign substances during your game because I'm like, yes, the knuckleballer is going to increase his spin rate. That's going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know. They even made a joke about it. Like that was another thing I remember is like when I walked up and down, like hey Mick, sorry we got to do this, but check my stuff, and then they're like, hey, congratulations, kid, as as they handed it back to me, so I thought that was pretty cool too.
That's cool, especially if the umpires commented on that. So after rewatching the available video of your start, and fortunately, what happens when your knuckleball doesn't knuckle, that's a bad time. So my question to you is, what do you do in that instance? What's your backup?
I mean, I think I mixed in a few more fastballs than usual. So that's something that, I could still throw it around 90 miles an hour, which, is below average fastball nowadays. But, again, it's different than the average. So,
Right.
That might work. And then, changing speeds with the knuckleball, that is something that has helped a lot in the last few years for me. I used to be pretty much like one speed or one speed plus. So it was always like 75 and above. So it was really hard for me to take speed off. So I was like 77 to like 81 was pretty much my range of speed. And lately I've figured out how to take speed off without changing my mechanics too much and without adding too much spin. So um, I think I remember getting out of a jam with I think it was Yuri Gurriel. I threw a slow knuckleball to him and was able to get him to like weakly pop out to right field on a slow knuckleball. And that's just something I learned to do. And if it's not knuckling as well that day, you got to mix speeds and find another way, because you're still going to be you're still going to be pitching, you're still there to eat up innings and things. So you just kind of battle as much as you can out there.
Okay. No, that's good to hear. And plus, it's interesting to hear it from a player's perspective, especially when you're like, here, this is what I'm paid to do, and it's not working today. Because as I've said, the knuckleball is my favorite pitch, and you've previously described the pitch as a field pitch. Can you elaborate on that for those of us who aren't pitchers?
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's something that you really just have to have a good feel of that day, because the feel of it can change daily or pitch by pitch based on the baseball. Sometimes you grab a baseball and you're like, grab it and you grip it and you're like, this just feels not a good baseball to throw it. Like, it just doesn't feel good in your hand. Where really realistically, like if you're just a four seam power pitcher, like if you grab a baseball, you can grip it on the four seams and just let it rip at a high spin rate or high velocity. But with the knuckleball, just because you have to throw it perfect, or I mean, I wouldn't say you have to throw it perfect every time, but pretty close to perfect just to get it with no spin. So your mechanics have to be almost perfect. Your arm slot has to be perfect. Everything has to be in sync every single time you let go of it, because one little open up too quick, or trying to overthrow it just a little bit too much might add rotation, and then it turns into from a 80 mile an hour like perfect knuckleball that dances everywhere to an 80 mile an hour BP fastball right down the middle. That doesn't do anything. So just everything has to be perfect and in line on every pitch. Otherwise you can see what happens real fast is that it doesn't knuckle, and then guys tee off on it. And you saw it my debut, I gave up 3 home runs. R.A. Dickey is famous for one of his first starts as a knuckleball pitcher. He gave up 6 home runs in Texas. But so that's just what's going to be part of it. And I mean, you saw on the biggest stage with Tim Wakefield and Aaron Boone, one pitch, he was throwing well, and then one pitch doesn't knuckle, and then, sent home for the season. It's just, that comes with the pitch. And, so that's just, like I said, that's part of it. And just having a good feel for it that day. Like I said, it changes from pitch to pitch sometimes, or day to day. So, there are some days where I go out and I throw a bullpen and I'm like, I can't even throw a knuckleball today, but then the next day you wake up and it's moving more than ever. So it's just such a strange pitch where it was just like that day, something might have been off just a little bit. So it just comes with the territory.
Yeah, I've heard the knuckleball called the Zen pitch of baseball, whereas everything has to be in alignment, otherwise bad things happen.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yeah.
So what do you say to folks? I've touched on it earlier, but what do you say to folks and where people are focusing on high velocity and maximum amounts of spin rate, that the knuckleball is a relic best forgotten?
I mean, I never really run into people who say that. I'm never really, um, people who see me throw the knuckleball, or see any knuckleball, they're like, you know, are you trying to like keep it around until the next guy, or like what do you? I'm like, well, no, I'd never really thought of that. I'm just like going out to pitch. It's just what I do and what the guys in the past have done. Ari Dickey, Stephen Wright. It's just going out there and pitching. And I mean, the bottom line is most organizations aren't against it, but they aren't like totally for it just because it takes so long to develop and perfect. You're trying to perfect an imperfect pitch is what people have always said. So it's just um, I don't think it's dying at all. I think it's just like it's hard for teams to invest in one person to just go take 5 years and learn how to throw this pitch. It's like, we want the results right now. We want you to develop right now. And, but I know it's pretty cool. I think it was the beginning of last year. There was an article that came out actually in the LA Times about the knuckleball, and Andrew Friedman was a huge fan of it, but it just takes so much time to develop and perfect. He was talking about using a knuckleballer as like an opener, but some days it's hard for a knuckleballer to throw strikes. So it's hard to be an opener and eat up 2 or 3 innings or once through the lineup, just because of that. But I always think an opener would be like a perfect gig for a knuckleballer, because one day you could throw 1 inning, the next day you could throw 3 innings, and then a day off and then throw another inning or whatever as an opener. I always thought that was a pretty cool idea to have, but I know it's just finding that person or that team or that executive to believe in someone to be able to do that every day, or every 2 days, every 3 days. And to have that idea is pretty cool, but then to have somebody actually go out there and execute it is a whole nother thing. And that's just what makes the pitch so tough, and it's so hard to trust. I think I remember an interview with Terry Francona when Tim Wakefield was on the team. He just said it was like sitting on a rocking chair. It was like one batter, he's like, okay, I got to go get him on the next. Oh no, he's throwing well. Oh no, I got to go get him. Oh no, it's just like one after another, and that's the whole thing with the field pitch. Like one batter, you feel it, and then the next one, all right, maybe I didn't. Okay, I got it back. And, it's just so unpredictable that it's hard to trust. Where like especially nowadays with analytics and those types of things, like you can look at a Rapsodo or TrackMan or whatever and be like, okay, I know the fastball is going to move like this. I know what to expect if the guy's throwing like this. And or the knuckleball, you look at a TrackMan and you're like, that didn't read anything. I don't know what to do with this information. So and it's true with me. Like even I've tried to like talk to our analytics guys and video guys and just be like, what do you see? Like, what can you track? What this, and there's like, you literally can't learn analytics about it. And one TrackMan reads it, the next one can't read it, and it's just all over the place. And again, that's what I like about it, because it's so unpredictable, and that's what why I believe in it. I trust in it. But again, you just got to find the right spot or right organization for somebody else to believe in it.
I hear you. I'm glad people aren't telling you that prompt I gave you. It's mostly from people on the internet that I've seen it from, and I'm just like, no, there's a space for it. And plus, I'm like, even I mean, I saw a video that you put out on Instagram yesterday that if you could send me like some permanent version of that doesn't disappear after 24 hours, especially your knuckleball set to also Spraxar Sustra from 2001. It was a thing of beauty. I mean, maybe it's rotating twice, maybe 3 times on its way to the catcher's mitt. I mean, it was poetry. And then the only thing I thought of was like, oh, imagine when you're doing this on the mound and some poor schlubs in the batter's box being like, oh my God, what am I? It's trying to hit a soap bubble. And so I guess I'm, you know, when that footage from yesterday, when was that taken?
That was last Friday. I threw that bullpen. Just went out there and, you know, you just let it rip, and that's really all you do every time. And that's kind of the approach I take to pitching too. Sometimes, like, you are trying to pitch with it. It's not just, you know, when I first started throwing knuckleball and trying to get looked at by scouts and independent ball, I throw up for a scout and they're like, "Oh, you throw it really hard." Like, okay, like, so guys throw 100. He throws that ball really hard. Like, nobody really saw, like, before R.A. Dickey, nobody saw a knuckleball going 80 miles an hour, 84 miles an hour. Like, everybody was like in awe of R.A. Dickey. And I was like, wow, I can do this too. Like, maybe somebody, it'll open somebody else's eyes. And instead I got all these scouts that are like, you throw that really hard. Aren't you supposed to lob it in there? And, every time they went to like watch a bullpen of mine, they're like, oh, like, that's weird. I expected, everybody expects that abbreviated windup where you're just like, throwing the same thing and you're just like kind of punching it and pushing it in there at 65 miles an hour. And I was like, I never had to change my windup. Never had that abbreviated motion of Tim Wakefield, and, even R.A. Dickey had it a little bit. But I mean, you look at Stephen Wright. Stephen Wright didn't really have like a knuckleball motion. Like, he was slow and deliberate, but he still had like a long arm motion, as opposed to like R.A. Dickey and Tim Wakefield, which are just, short, quick, like right to the ear and then push it out. But I think that's just what, everybody had this perception of what a knuckleball is supposed to be from guys in the past. But, I think with everything else, like, guys are throwing 100 now all the time. I thought throwing a harder knuckleball was going to catch on a lot more than it has. But again, that's because, teams aren't investing in it, or, they're not seeing guys do that. And it's hard to control and it's hard to predict. So it's just like, all right, well, I saw this, but I don't know what to do with this bullpen that I just saw. I can tell my guys about it, but I don't know what to say, and that was another thing too. Like, you can throw a knuckleball and you might throw a good one, or you might have a bad catcher, or you might have a good catcher that catches everything. So it doesn't look as good to the eye when you're like watching a bullpen. But if you get a hitter just standing there and you see the swings they take or the contact they make, because, everything right now is about swings and misses, but my whole thing is weak contact. I want weak contact. Like, I want you to put the ball in play. I want you to swing, and I want it to be weak contact. Those are like my 3 goals. Like, if I get a strikeout, like, that's great. But unless I get 2 strikes on you, I'm not really trying to strike you out. I just want you to put the ball in play quick and weakly, So, again, it's just different type of game. And, and it was actually pretty cool. Like, after I made my debut, I had so many more people like reach out, like learning to throw it. Like, and like a couple guys in college that were like, one guy was like a 6th year college kid at University of Charlotte, I think. And then another kid was with the Rockies organization in AA. They had him switch to the knuckleball. Another kid is throwing it with the Padres organization. But it's like you see the things like pop up. But it's just like keep getting that opportunity to move on up, because I think it works better against more advanced hitters because they see more advanced pitching and it's so different than more advanced pitching. But it's also tougher to throw because they're more patient. If you can't throw up for strikes, they will just sit and take. They'll take. I'm going to make you throw a strike. I'm going to make you throw a strike. So if you can keep it in the strike zone, like, it does make it better. So it's just, again, it's just taking that time to develop that feel for the strike zone, the feel for what a hitter is trying to do against you, which you really never know. But um, it's just, I don't think it's a dying art. I just think it just takes time for people to develop it. And that's just the bottom line, is whether or not teams are going to take that time to develop, and whether or not they have a guy that believes in what you can do with the knuckleball.
But I think that's what's interesting in your situation is you basically have had that development in different, I mean, not all at once, but in indie ball with the Mets when they tried to turn you into an R.A. Dickey clone. And I was like, and you described it in that video where basically it's like the knuckleball isn't, it's almost like a bespoke pitch where you have to, and this is how I'm describing it, where you have to basically tailor it to the pitcher rather than like, okay, here's how you throw X, just do that. Because I mean, if anything, I don't know, it seemed like classic knuckleballers were more of a shot put motion, and I did track for a while, so that's what it just looks like, where it's like here, you're basically just putting it out there, and Dickey comes along, where I'm like, oh my God, it's just a regular windup, but he's throwing it hard, and you do it too, which I think is really impressive.
Yeah.
You knew this question was coming. You were in the minors for more than 10 years and independent ball. What kept you going?
Just deep down, I really believe that I had a good enough knuckleball to pitch in the major leagues. So that was really it. I was like, I know it's good enough. Like, it's there in bullpens. It's there sometimes in the games. It's, again, I mean, I think there's a lot of, you look at professional baseball and you're like, there's so many guys who have the stuff to pitch in the major league, to play in the major leagues, that just don't get the opportunity. And, when I was with the Mets, my first 2 years, I was, I had a pitching coordinator who worked with R.A. Dickey and then worked with me, and he was behind me, like pushing me to, like if he's in the front office talking to guys like, hey, let's give Mickey a shot. Let's give Mickey a shot, that type of thing. He ends up having health problems and leaves the organization. And now I have nobody behind me. Now it's pretty much on my own. So it was just like, all right, am I ever going to get the chance? I start in AAA in 2018. I'm like, okay, here's my opportunity. Have one bad start and one okay start, and then they send me down because the Mets started 13-1, and they were like, well, we got to win now. We need guys in AAA who are ready for the big leagues, ready to help the team win. And they didn't see me as that guy, so they sent me back to AA. Worked on some things, had a really good second half down there. And so they're like 2018, like, okay, we'll keep them around. 2019 comes around, like, didn't start in AAA. Actually started on the Phantom DL in 2019. And I'm like, what am I still doing here? Like, these guys don't believe in me anymore. Like, I actually asked them for my release because I was like, if you're not going to give me this opportunity, I'm in AA. I'm setting AA records in Binghamton. Like, what's the big deal? Like, somebody else will give me an opportunity. Like, I'm putting up good enough numbers where I should get more than one game in AAA. And, they didn't see it as that. And that's just how the game works sometimes. They ended up not releasing me. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to go out and pitch. And I ended up having a great even better second half than I did the year before, and that was leading into my free agent year. And then, as a free agent, I was, just like, I hope somebody gives me an opportunity, and believed in what I could do the last month of 2019. And, that led to a Diamondbacks call and the Orioles, and ended up going with the Orioles, which, turned out to be a great decision. And then COVID hit, get sent back home. I'm like, all right, now I'm going to be a free agent after this year. Well, they ended up calling me and re-signing me, basically giving me a redo for the 2020 season, which was nice. And then 2021 came, and just, went out and took advantage of it for the first half. And then the second half of the season, wasn't very strong, and I was trying to figure out my knuckleball. And I mean, you see in my big league debut, just the difference between the first two innings and the last two innings. And You know, it was just that whole way, the whole second half of the season where it was just like, you know, I'd have a good inning here, next inning bad, next inning good, next inning bad. It was just like I couldn't put it consistently together for the whole second half of the season. So I didn't get another opportunity with them that season to get called back up. Um, so you know, and that's just the part of it. I just didn't have a very good feel of the knuckleball the second half, you know. And like I said, I'd go out there one inning and I'd be like, all right, I got it back. I figured it out. And then the next inning I'd get hit around for 2 or 3 runs and walk a guy and a home run. And, you know, the first half of the season I didn't give up any home runs. And then the second half of the season I gave up like 12, you know, so I was just getting beat by the long ball. And, you know, again, that's just comes with the pitch. And, you know, usually the second half of the season is where I throw really well, and it went the other way around that year, you know, last year. So it's just you know, how it goes with that pitch. You know, you lose it for half of the season, you find it for half of the season kind of thing, and you know, find it one inning, don't have it the next inning. And, you know, it's just figuring it out, and feel like I've made some good strides this off season and getting it more consistent again to where it's more dancing and less predictable again. So just trying to take that into whoever will give me a shot, pretty much.
Okay. I just want to throw a couple hypotheticals at you, and then we'll wrap this up. I mean, I'm just blown away to have your time, Mickey. It's just great talking to you.
No worries.
Your passion's evident, and it's just, you know, I was telling folks when pitching this interview, it's like, look, this guy's a scrapper. I can relate to him. We've both taken sort of roundabout routes to get to where we want to go, and we're not quite there yet. But you know, the fact that you made it to the show, I think, you know, more people should know you and your story, and not just your story, but the fact that, hey, and you did it this way. You know, that's just you know, I'm no journalist. I'm a lawyer by day, and I see people at their worst. And this was just I don't know how much of my stuff you've read, if any. If you haven't, that's cool
I read
too.
a few articles when you I was looking up a couple when you sent me your I think you sent me your page or your
Yeah.
the website you write for. So I was looking up a couple of them.
Okay. Well, okay. But initially, I was just like, look, this is a guy who I'd like to talk to more and know more, not just because A, he's a knuckleballer, but you know, you probably hear this all the time. You seem like a great person. You know, there's a humbleness about you that just, you know, the world would be kinder if there were more folk like you, Mickey. It just, you know, and I'm not trying to have it ever be sappy. I'm just being honest. Um, and that's that line I thread, because I'm like, I'm not a professional journalist. I can throw memes into essays because I know my audience, because I do serious writing all day, and this is the fun outlet. So let's just pretend 5 years from now, I just pretend I'm fine. There's a status quo, of course, obviously, you know, there's still baseball, etc. But, you know, I come back and I tell you, you're the second coming of R.A. Dickey. And, you know, 5 years from now, how do you see that happening?
Well, I mean, if you look at our careers, they're similar in a way. I mean, he got, you know, conventional pitcher called up. You know, he made it to major leagues as a conventional pitcher, but they kind of saw as it wasn't his route and wanted to give the knuckleball a shot. So I mean, you saw his debut not go very well with the knuckleball as well. Um, so I think it's just getting the opportunity with the team that believes in what you can do, and you know, I think it's just continuing to get better, continuing to get more consistent, um, just finding that right opportunity with a team to give you that chance. And like I said, the Orioles gave me that chance the first half of the season. And then, like I said, I struggled the second half of the season. I finished the season in Double A. Um, so, you know, just being able to take advantage of an opportunity that a team gives me, and just again, continue to develop and get better um, each time out there. And you know, whether that's, you know, get that opportunity this year or, you know, Like I said, I mean, just like to get a whole season in AAA because I've never really had that for my career. Um, like I said, the first half of the season with the Orioles, I was in AAA and pitched really well, and they gave me an opportunity. So, I'd like to see a team, even if I'm struggling, is to just stay in AAA and get that opportunity because, you know, I mean, I truly believe there's a spot in not just the team that I pitch for, but really any team for a knuckleball pitcher. And if you can throw strikes with it and get people out, like that's a great asset to have on a major league staff, let alone any major league staff or even any staff, to be honest. Like, just to be so different than every other pitcher on the staff is the huge thing to have. I mean, you just look at how successful like Tim Wakefield and Ari Dickey were, where when Dickey was with the Mets and he was going out there 8-9 innings every time, and basically an off day for the bullpen. And Tim Wakefield, and he would close a game, he would start a game, he'd throw a long relief. Hey, I'll eat up the innings. I don't care. Like, and I mean, that's the same attitude I have, is like, I'll go out and pitch every day if they want me to. Like, if they need me to eat up innings, I'll go out there and eat up innings. Just wanting to pitch is pretty much all I, want to do. So it's just being able to take advantage of an opportunity to go out there at the highest level in the minor leagues and prove that I can pitch there. And then, if I get a shot to pitch in the major leagues, just hopefully take more of an advantage of it this time.
Well, yeah, I don't think you didn't take advantage of it. I just think you had an off day. I mean, your knuckleball didn't knuckle. That's the gist of it. But I mean, but for those first couple innings, I think you looked great. It was just, it just wasn't your day. I've seen a little bit about me. In 2015, I was in New York. I happened to see, this is just a weird coincidence, Zach Lee. Now I think he's out of the league, but he was a highly touted Dodger prospect. He made his major league debut, and I saw him pitch a couple times.
The Mets. Yeah, he was a teammate of mine.
Yeah, against the Mets, and he got lit up. I mean, ultimately, he made one error. It wasn't his pitching. It was a grounder to short. He lets it go. It's a tailor-made double play ball. He maybe gives up a run, maybe two, to start the inning. Not a great start, but unfortunately, he dives off the mound, stabs it, knocks it away. Everybody's safe. Bases are loaded. Inning snowballs from there. And he never really recovered. And I just felt so bad because he literally went 3 innings. And the game turned into a laugher. The Dodgers lost like 15-2. And, you pay to go see a game. You're stuck at the ballpark if it turns into a laugher like that. But, if it's TV, you turn it off. But I was just thinking the longest time, that was his only start in the majors. And, but I mean, unlike him, you were drafted in the 44th round. No, it blew me away, just the sense of like, okay, you weren't the highly touted prospect. But not to say, but there is that competitiveness in you. So, even if that start in against the Astros is your only show experience in the show, what do you take away from that?
I mean, sure, still, I still got the opportunity to pitch in the major leagues. I mean, that's really, for one, that was the goal, to pitch in the major leagues. And everybody that'll tell you is how the next goal is to succeed in the major leagues, which, doesn't happen for everyone. It's very difficult. I mean, you see how many guys get shuttled to and from AAA and AA all year. It is difficult, and those guys are pretty darn good up there. So it's just, and like I said, if they gave me more of an opportunity, maybe the next game I go out and throw 4 or 5 shutout innings, and then it's a whole different story. But things happen the next few days where they need a pitcher, fresher arm. I'm the guy, at the bottom that has to get moved, and that's part of the game. But at the end of the day, I still got up there, still got to pitch in the major leagues. Had a couple of successful innings, and then after that, ran out of gas, whatever it was. Knuckleball stopped moving, but you know what? It was, I wouldn't trade it for anything, and that's what it's all about, is getting up there, giving it everything you had, and seeing what happens after that.
So 10, 15 years from now, when you're out of baseball, what do you see yourself doing?
I mean, I've always enjoyed like building a team. Um, I like the aspect of being like a GM or like a farm director and like putting teams together and building an organization. So, I mean, I always remember playing like, baseball video games or the football video games, and everybody else is like playing the actual game, and I'm the one playing the general manager side, like building the team together, playing like one season. I'm like, I don't like that team, like restart it, or whatever, playing a couple years, simulating the game. And so I've always enjoyed the general manager side of things, and building a team, putting it together, because I mean, I enjoy coaching, and I give lessons here and there for kids, but if you go into coaching, it's basically the same life as a player. And if you're not in the major leagues, like, it's not the best life in the minor leagues, riding buses and being away from your family and that type of thing. So, I would like to work in the front office one day, or like at a spring training facility, being a farm director and putting a team together.
Okay, very cool. Um, I don't know how many interviews you've done, but at the same time, this is me turning it around on you. What's the one question you wish people would ask you?
I don't know if I really have a question that I wish they would ask, but sometimes I always enjoy the different um, questions that people ask. Like, you know, a lot of times the interviews are like, okay, when did you start throwing the knuckleball? When? Why did you start throwing it? This and that, everything knuckleball. But like, I enjoy when they bring other things into the equation, different questions that people come up with. So I don't think there's one specific one where I'm like, I wish they would ask me about this, because it's like every interview is different. But when some of them get to be too much of the same, because um, it's always knuckleball, everything knuckleball, knuckleball, knuckleball. When do you throw it? How do you throw it? That type of thing. But it's always nice to have that a little bit. But when that's the biggest part of the conversation, like sometimes like it's just like a little monotonous. But so when you have different things, like different questions that interviewers ask, like I enjoy those ones a lot more. Like, kind of keep me on my toes instead of like expecting the same ones.
Right, because I figured, like I tried to put a little bit of that in there, but at the same time, I figured I could just get video, especially, when you threw up that video yesterday from Instagram. I was like, perfect. I'll ask him to send me like the raw of that, and we can include that. And then, I don't need to ask, because I'm not a pitcher, so I can't, me. I joke, it's like trying to explain mechanics to a dog, actual car mechanics to a dog. It's just different. Or me trying to explain law stuff to you. Not to say you're not a smart guy, not to say I'm not a smart guy, but at the same time, there's no field of reference. So to close this, all right, close this out. What, when people ask you what one story, when people ask you about your career and just so far, even if it's, what's the one story you tell when people ask about your life as a professional ball player?
One story. I mean, now it's probably like, probably give them, I don't know. I always try and stay like humble. So it's always hard for me to like brag about myself. But, um, if people find out, I'll probably, I'm always open to people asking me whatever they want, if they want to ask me questions about baseball. But, even me asking other people about their career, sometimes it's like a little intimidating when, what do you think about your career? Like, what do you think about this? But I always enjoy telling people whatever they want to, whatever they can come up with question wise. But I think um, now I think I'll be able to tell them like, yeah, I pitched in the major leagues for one game, and against the Houston Astros, got major league strikeout, and played you know, not that it wouldn't been a successful baseball career without the major league experience, but being able to play 12, 13, 14, 15, whatever years it is of professional baseball is pretty cool.
Okay, Mickey, good luck to you in the coming year. Thanks so much for everything. It's been a genuine pleasure, and I will actively root for you from this point forward.
Thanks. I appreciate you having me on. If you have any follow-up questions or anything, don't be afraid to reach out or video requests. Let me know, and I'll send them your way.
Oh, sure thing. Let me stop recording for a second because I didn't want to say this.